Andrew Scott, you star in All of Us Strangers as Adam, who starts a relationship with a mysterious stranger and also comes to term with his parents, who seem to have returned 30 years after he lost them in a car accident. It's an unusual kind of magical realist premise. What did you think of it when you first heard it?
I love in scripts when there's a sort of an audacity to the premise. I think kind of being able, it's an outlet, isn't it? Or any form of art is an outlet for our imagination. And I love when scripts have something that's sort of got a bit of audacity and a bit of bravery about what their premise might be, or a bit of flair in the way the writing is constructed. So I actually think the premise of it is a very, very beautiful one in its simplicity. The idea of what would it be like if I could talk to those people, actually talk to them in a real grounded way. When I thought I never would be able to, and what would the adult me be like with my adult parents if I was older than them? How would I tell them about how the last 30 years has been? And I love the fact that it's something that Adam may have thought about over the past 30 years, but the reality of talking to people, particularly members of your family, your parents, actually is a little bit more thorny and a little bit more brutal and a little bit more vulnerable making than I think he could ever have imagined, even though he's actually conjured them up himself.
And what was your entry point for kind of relating to this character in particular?
There's no doubt in my mind. When I read the script, I saw an awful lot of myself in the character. There were scenes that I just felt I understood, and I knew that my challenge was to bring as much of my own self and my own, for want of a better word, my own pain and my own history and my own joy to it. And so I didn't really want to move towards anything other than that. And I suppose that was a bit of a scary thing to do, but I felt not just because I love Andrew's work. For years, I've absolutely loved his work, and I've always felt very seen by it. But from when I spoke to him first, we just had a sort of affinity about our own shared history, and I felt like I wanted to honor him and protect him in some way, and tell the truth. That's what the most important thing is, to tell the truth in all its wonderful, thorny glory.
And you mentioned feeling seen by Andrew Haig's work. What about him as a filmmaker really stands out to you? What distinguishes his work?
I think his work is so moving because it lacks sentimentality. He's really interested in telling the truth, and he doesn't. He's not interested in sentimentality or saccharine stuff, because the world is moving enough as it is. And so he allows the audience to do a little bit of work themselves. There's a kind of dreamlike quality to this film, and like all dreams, we can wake up from a dream and feel incredibly desolate or full of rage or full of joy. We can wake up laughing and we think, wow, I feel this so strongly, like it was, like sometimes even more strongly than when we're conscious. And so we're not overly concerned after a dream with what the actual plot of the dream was, more the feeling. And I think he's directed the audience in a very beautiful way. So I think he's so unique, and I think he's got a real respect for actors. We shot it in his childhood home, but he allowed us to bring all of our own thoughts and feelings and our own spark of divine fire into the world of it as well. And he's just an extraordinary colleague.
And you're tasked with tapping into a deep well of emotions in this film. As an actor in general, like, how do you prepare for an especially emotional scene, one that's going to kind of take a lot out of you or demand a lot from you?
I think it's a question of focus, really. It's a very personal thing to even think about. Actually, it's like Well, one, there's a sort of practical challenge, which is if you have a scene all day that you have to repeat 27 times in various different um, shot sizes, it's to hold on to the feeling. And that can be difficult to do when you're at lunch, or, you know, you have to pay bills at lunchtime, and there's a whole buzz of the set, and somebody calls you, and you have to sort of stay in a place that um, sometimes is a difficult place to stay in. So it's a question of stamina sometimes. But my job, in a sense, I realize after doing it for all these years, is that you really just require to be as near your emotions as possible, and to be open to them, even the ones that you're ashamed of, and you don't want to feel. That's what I think makes, my job as an actor is to tell the truth, not to show life as it is, not as you kind of want it to be. And so with that, then the lows can be low and the highs can be high. But when you're working with people like this, and you're doing making a story that you really believe in, it becomes a real privilege, because I would love to have seen a film like this when I was growing up, and it feels genuinely just magical that this film could be of use to other people. That's the absolute goal of the work, making the work that I want to make, is to touch people in whatever way I can, and that can be in lots of different ways. It's like going to be making people laugh, or making people cry or feel seen. That's what you want to do. You want to connect.
One of the interesting aspects of the film, just the nature of this premise, is that you end up, playing the son of actors who are somewhat younger than you. Is that, creating that bond of parent and child more complicated then?
No, it was completely without complication. In the theater, we do that all the time. People can play 5 parts, and they walk on, and they go blah blah blah, and the audience immediately knows that's the gig when you're watching a play. But in film, we don't do it as much, or we think, oh, maybe they need to have some weird nuclear glow around them, so we spoon feed the audience into believing a certain thing so that they don't get confused. And we did none of that. It just allows the actors to use their imagination, and that's the most important thing you can have as an actor, I believe, alongside a sense of humor. To use your imagination. And if you've got really great actors in a really great script, I just find it really easy, and you go into a thing, and there was no point I thought that we didn't know until we started if it was going to work, but immediately I just felt like Claire was my mum and Jamie was my dad, and I didn't think about, I just felt like a child.
And one scene where that really comes through is his coming out scene to his mother, and how complicated that is, and how nuanced her reaction is, and like, what was it like shooting that scene?
I was really glad to feel like we'd got it right, because it's upsetting, that scene. It's very potent, and I was upset when I read it about the kind of brutality that's in it, but also the weird love and the surprising nature of it, and the kind of the rage that's in it. It's unpleasant in some ways, and you have to experience your own feelings of hurt that you may have gone through. But my job is to sort of hit those notes. So with Claire, the two of us want to get it right, and I felt like if I could look at Andrew and say, is that okay? And because we have had such shared experiences, I feel like if I was able to look at him and go, do you think we have it? I just trusted him. And I think he trusted me. And so, yeah, it was difficult because it's an unpleasant sort of scene. But I'm glad, because it has touched people, and people don't react to scenes like that in the way that they have unless they see some truth in them. And so I feel like if people are reacting the way they have, it means that we've told the truth. And that's what acting is. It's the lie that tells the truth.
One of the things that I've loved about Andrew Haig's work is how intimate it is, but and the way he captures both emotional intimacy and physical intimacy is
Yeah.
very important to all of his stories. Which do you think is the more challenging aspect as an actor? Because I know physical love scenes can be the least the least pleasant thing sometimes, or very complicated to shoot.
Yeah.
How is that?
But it's interesting talking about physicality. I feel like this is maybe it's not obvious, particularly maybe watching the film, but I felt it a very physical role. I felt like the childish nature of what I had to do with Jamie and Claire was so much about sensuality, the sensuality between parents and their children. That we have a relationship with our parents and their bodies and the way we touch each other, the way children touch we feel people have just rights to their parents, and they're always touching each other. And this is about a man who's very lonely, who hasn't experienced any type of physical intimacy for quite some time, I think. So that sensuality actually exists in both storylines, but it's just different types of physicality. And so the sex scenes were, you get nervous about them and you want to get them right. But Andrew was really good. We had an intimacy coordinator, and everybody felt very safe in relation to what we wanted to do, and we sort of mapped it out in some loose fashion. But Andrew was really good about sort of not being too reverent about that actually there was still some sort of sex is just communication, it's just physical communication. And so it was not to be too precious about it, and we still had to offer up in the same way I had to offer up myself emotionally. I have to do that physically and risk, take a risk. And I think the reason the scenes are work, or the reason that there's chemistry, people find it, you want something to be both sexy and vulnerable and truthful and all those things, is because, we're really listening to each other physically. And that requires just a lack of self-consciousness. And actually, I think having an intimacy coordinator allows for that, because everybody feels safe. So you don't think you're going to be exploited. So you just go, and if there's something that you feel unhappy with, that it's never going to be seen.
And thankfully, your work in this film has been recognized. Golden Globe nomination, as we're recording this, that happened this morning, and other recognition for the film as a whole. What is it like when your work that you've done ends up being received in that positive way, and you're sort of on this kind of awards journey with it?
I think for this particular film, it feels really, really wonderful. I just really want people to see the movie. I really do. Because I think to see the film is to love the film. And what this means, all these accolades for the film, really means that people will watch it. And I really hope that they watch it, if possible, in an environment with other people, and watch it in the movie theaters. And look, it's a wonderful thing, and it's exciting and all that stuff. But more than anything, I feel like with small little films like this, they can sometimes just really, really help people who are going through things. I have friends who are going through really hard grief at the moment, and I was quite skeptical about them seeing it. And my friend said that this was a tough watch, but very helpful. And I hope that people know that there's a film out there that could be helpful to them. That's the purpose of what we do. And so if awards bring that attention to those people, and that's what's completely wonderful. And that's what people will ultimately remember.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work in the film, and all the attention that it's receiving, all the positive praise that it's been getting. And thank you so much for talking to me about it today.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you.